Well, once again, if your spouse is undocumented, that can create separate issues with immigration because, well, right now there is a push to deport people who are in the country in violation of the laws found in Title 8 of the United States Code. As far as protecting assets, in the Chapter 13, generally the assets are not in any jeopardy. It's really in Chapter 7 where assets are in jeopardy. Now, the assets still play a role in Chapter 13, but a very different role. So let me take a step back to set the stage by looking at Chapter 7 for just a second. In Chapter 7, what's the big picture goal? We're just going to erase debts in one fell swoop. The whole process takes a few months, and at the end, debts are just wiped out, with some exceptions. Because this is a pretty heavy hit from the creditor's perspective, there are some limitations. One limitation is on what you get to keep. So one of the things we include in the petition is a complete listing of everything you own or have an interest in. And all of your possessions get divided into two categories: exempt, non-exempt. The exempt stuff, that's yours to keep. The non-exempt stuff is fair game for the Chapter 7 trustee in the Chapter 7 bankruptcy case to seize and liquidate and have money to pay creditors. In a Chapter 13, you keep all your stuff. No trustee is going to take any of your things. But we still list all of your stuff and divide it into exempt and non-exempt categories because of something that I refer to as the Chapter 7 liquidation requirement for Chapter 13. Now, most attorneys call it the best interests of creditors requirement, but I think that's less descriptive. In any event, what that says is, over the lifetime of your Chapter 13 plan, you have to repay your creditors at least as much as they would have gotten if you had done a Chapter 7. How much would they get in a Chapter 7? The liquidation value of those non-exempt assets. So while all of your assets are yours to keep in a Chapter 13, we still do that exercise of listing them and dividing into those two categories because we need to find out what the dollar value is of the non-exempt assets. Now, those exemptions are just exemptions that are in, it turns out these are in a California statute. Even though bankruptcy is all federal law, the Bankruptcy Code does permit the states, if they want to use their own state exemption tables. And California has opted out of that federal table and uses two state tables, one for homeowners with equity in their principal residence, the other for everybody else, what I colloquially refer to as the renter's table. Each table has a list of various categories of possessions. Some categories have dollar limits, others have no dollar limits, and our goal as we list your stuff is to stick it into these categories so that if it's a Chapter 7, it's protected from the depredations of the Chapter 7 trustee, and in a Chapter 13, it minimizes how much you have to repay your creditors over the life of the plan. But those exemptions are not dependent upon immigration status. They're just in the California statute as saying these are things that if you have debts, you can still exempt. So yes, you can exempt stuff using those exemption tables regardless of the immigration status of your spouse.